Dr. Sam Thelin. He is a medical director of Chapala Cruz Roja. Most people do not know how the emergency response system functions in the Lake Chapala area, and many are completely confused and unprepared when a serious emergency arises. There are various legal, cultural, language, and regional factors involved. However the emergency response system worked in your home country, it is probably different here. Dr. Sam will explain how the local system functions, especially with regard to the Cruz Roja in Chapala, so that everyone has the opportunity to be prepared in case of a medical emergency. Dr. Sam graduated from the University of Texas at Dallas with a degree in biology and has a medical degree from the Universidad Autónoma de Guadalajara. He has lived in Mexico for 10 years and has lived lakeside working with the Cruz Roja for over 2 years, during which time he has seen thousands of emergency cases. Today he will share what he has learned about the local emergency system from experience and research. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sam.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. How many people, if any, do not have the 2 pieces of paper? A few people. Do we have? Okay. There may be a few extras. I printed off 125 copies, so it should be good. Anyway, we're going to start with the one, what you have not in color. I can show you where you can download them if you want them, and it'll be a little bit clearer. But anyway, this one right here that has the 5 circles at the top, or I guess they're oval shaped. We're going to start with that one, and then we'll go over to this one. Wait just a second until everybody gets them. Okay. Basically, I came down to Mexico to study medicine under a 4-year program. Anyway, things changed, kind of like the Gilligan's Island scenario. And 10 years later, I'm still here. And basically, I went into the Red Cross. They were needing somebody as a doctor. And actually, at that time, there were only 2 doctors. One of them was at a convention, so the other one had worked 4 days straight. And so basically, they just needed somebody to work there. I didn't actually plan on doing and learning all about the whole Mexican medical system, but it happened. It's very different than in the United States, and from what I understand, extremely different from Canada as well. Basically, I spent hundreds of hours the first year just going over what Mexico calls the norms. They're basically, they're not regulations, they're not necessarily laws. What they have is you have a hierarchy. At the top you have the Constitution, and then it goes on down into the laws, the regulations. And then the norms, or the normas as they call them, are basically guidelines. And it tells you what you can and can't do, or what you should do basically, based on what the laws are. And so we are obligated to go by the regulations and the guidelines as closely as possible. And a lot of people don't have any idea what to do. I have seen in the last 3 years, I don't think I would be lying if I said well over 2,000 people, patients, that had the idea that whatever they had could simply be resolved quickly, and then you worry about it later. For example, in the United States, you have a problem, you call an ambulance, they take you to wherever you need to go, whatever hospital, you get in, and then you worry about paying for it later if it's a major emergency. Of course, the price is outrageous, but the system of that nature does not work here in Mexico. There's 2 different systems. There is the government system, which basically covers the expenses to a large extent, and then there's the private system. And they both work extremely differently than one from another, or how they would work in the States. Let's look at this one first. Basically at the top it says A, B, C, D, and E. What a lot of people will want or expect is option E. Somebody comes in, they never thought about any medical emergency in their life, and one day they get hit by a truck or whatever, which has happened. And so basically, a lot of times it'll be the Cruz Roja ambulance that will pick them up. It can also be the municipal clinic. They have a couple of ambulances. The fire department has a couple of ambulances. The one that's probably more equipped, well, definitely the one that's more equipped is going to be the Red Cross. And that's the one that is basically, there's 4 different levels of ambulances. One is transport, and then they've got 2 levels of emergencies, and they've got intensive care. Nobody here, other than private companies who come from Guadalajara, are going to have intensive care. They're going to be either transport, of which a lot of them are simple transports, or they're going to be emergency level, basic emergency levels. But anyway, let's say the Red Cross, that's what I'm more familiar with, goes out, picks up this patient, he's got hit by a truck, they bring him into the Red Cross. They're going to do what they can to stabilize this patient, and then they're going to take some x-rays, they're going to see if he's got something broken, try to see if he's got internal bleeding. But, what can we do after that? For example, the Red Cross is not well, legally it's a hospital. The legal classification is a hospital without an operating room and without obstetrics. That's actually the legal classification of it. So, and that also means we do not have an intensive care as well. So this patient, there's no intensive care. We get a lot of people that need intensive care. We get people, usually they're older patients. The younger patients are usually chronic alcoholics that have cirrhosis and other problems from that. But we get patients that need that. We get patients that need surgery. We get patients that need basically transfusion, whatever. It's not available in this area. So what do? They're like, well, take me to the hospital in Guadalajara. Okay, what hospital? Whatever hospital. It's not that easy. There's a list, and I've got a presentation. If anybody wants a presentation after when we're doing the questions and answers, you're welcome to ask me for the web address, and I'll get it to you. This is a list of, I know you can't all see it from there. It's a list of the free hospitals where you can go. And actually, 80% of this is actually the phone numbers and the addresses for the hospital. You're basically limited to 3 main hospitals, and to some small extent there are some Cruz Verde hospitals in Guadalajara. However, there are actually 4 people in Guadalajara. The 2 hospitals that people would go to if they don't have any money would be what they call the civil hospitals, Hospital Civil. There's 2 of them. There's an old one and a new one. There probably need to be about 10 of them. There's not money for 10 of them. There's X number of beds, and for every bed, there's about 4 or 5 people waiting for that bed. Even if it's a major emergency, for example, you have a heart attack. If we give permission to take you there, you're going to wait in line. There's 10 other people in front of you that are having a heart attack at the same time. So it's not what people believe it to be. But let's just say this patient, okay, the one that got hit by the truck, he's got, let's just say he's got 5 broken ribs, he's got a collapsed lung. All right, let's just even make it work and say it's a right lung, which means that the heart and everything is going to move over. He could basically collapse a vena cava, he could die. All right, so we got an unstable condition. He needs to be in a hospital in Guadalajara right away. Can we take him? No. Can we take him to San Javier? Sure. We'll go into that in a minute. This patient doesn't have any money. He was drunk. The only thing he got money for is for his cerveza, and every weekend after he gets paid, he goes out and spends all his money. So he doesn't have any money. He's got 20 pesos in his pocket. Can't afford the ambulance. Okay, even if we take him for free, we can't take him to the Hospital Civil automatically. We have to call and give permission. Basically, what we have to do is determine if it's an emergency or not. This is actually a piece of paper. That's a government paper. I know nobody can read it. It's at the front row right here. But basically, it's for SAMU. SAMU is Sistema de Atención Médica de Urgencias. What does that mean? It's a triage. It's not anything new. SAMU is a system that's used in South America. It's used in Europe. What it is, it's a triage. It's a state triage. In Mexico, each state has their own triage system, and basically, this is a system to determine who needs the medical care more urgently and who is going to benefit from that care the best. So I'm going to call, and I'm going to say, say, hey, I've got a patient, he's 22 years of age, this happened, this happened, this happened. Does he have insurance? No, he got Seguro Popular. I doesn't have any insurance. Okay, and I'll go into that in a minute too. But, so basically they're gonna say, okay, what are his vital signs, this and this? I'm like, well, he's got a collapsed lung, he's got this and this. Okay, so he's unstable. So they're gonna say, okay, this patient does need attention. He has a high probability of living. If treated, he has a very high probability of dying if he's not treated. This is the type of patient that's gonna be on the top of the list. So they're gonna call me back. They're basically gonna get on the radio, the two-way radios. They're gonna call Guadalajara, they're gonna call around the different hospitals. And if I'm lucky, in 15 or 20 minutes, they'll call me back. If I'm super lucky, they may actually tell me in this minute, go ahead and take him to Hospital Seville. What's that going to get him? Is that going to get him right into the operating room? No. That's going to get him a gurney in the middle of the hall. Which is a big battle won. But whether or not he lives or dies depends on whether or not they accept him. Let me give you another scenario. We had a patient. This is a real case. We had a patient, 3-year-old girl. Collision between two motorcycles. I'm sure you've all seen how the motorcycles drive here. The 3-year-old girl was being held on a motorcycle by her dad. She fell off, basically had a skull fracture. We could see it on the x-ray, and so basically we call SAMU. We say, we got a patient, 3 years of age, has this, and this, and we give all the information. First of all, in a skull fracture, they would like a CAT scan. They would like to see three-dimensional. Okay, that means that they've got to go to Guadalajara, pay to have that done, and then call SAMU back again and say, yeah, we have the results. Yeah, it's really a fracture of the skull. It's a very long and drawn-out process. What did we end up doing? The best we could do for this patient. Now, she was stable in that she was breathing correctly. Her saturation of oxygen was good. Her heart rate was good. However, she did have she was basically very tired. She had some alterations, dental alterations. The best we could do was to take her to the Cruz Roja in Guadalajara, and she waited there 3 days until there was a place available at Hospital Seville. Other cases, I have seen other patients, actually I probably shouldn't say this, but there was a patient, cancer patient, came into the Red Cross a couple days ago. The police are the ones that actually called it. Basically, nobody had heard from them in a while. And so basically, the police went there. They went in. There was no act of violence or anything. He was laying on the floor, unconscious. They brought him into the Red Cross. No wallet, no identification, no information, no family, no nothing. So basically, we're not going to get permission because this is a patient that, okay, he's a chronic patient. Patient is probably going to die within a few days if he's not treated. He's going to die if he is treated. They wouldn't accept him. Actually, he ended up dying and nobody knows who he was. He was taken by the forensics, and it'll probably go to the consulate. Who knows what will happen. But I've also seen a few other patients that were, another patient that had Parkinson's. Nobody knew him. Same situation that happened about 2.5 years ago. So, if you don't have insurance, you don't have money, you go through this system. The system is, let's go through it. Option E, taking you straight to Hospital Seville by ambulance, illegal. Without a number, a permit number, saying this patient has been given permission, it cannot be done. It is illegal. They will not accept the patient, period. You've got option D, which is personal transport to a public hospital. Give you another real example. 18-year-old girl, she fell, broke her femur. Is it life-threatening? Could be. It could be, but at this moment it's not. Does it need attention? Yeah, but it's not life and death. Going back to this one right here. This one basically says, is it, in Mexico they divide it into two categories. Urgencia and emergencia. What's the difference? Emergencia is there's an immediate risk of dying. Urgencia, yeah, it's urgent, and it could develop into something life and death, but at this moment, there's not a risk of dying. So basically, if there's not an immediate risk of dying, it's not, in their opinion, something where they're going to give permission to go. So if this patient doesn't have any insurance, doesn't have anything, the best they can do If go by themselves, could run a little harm. Okay, going back to this case, 18-year-old girl, broken femur. I explained the situation to her dad, that, she's not going to get permission to go. It's not life and death. I said, the best thing you can do is go there to Hospital Seville yourself. This was like 11:30 at night. I think it was Friday or Saturday night. And so he did. He basically borrowed a minivan, took the back seats out so she could lay down in the back, took her to Hospital Seville, about 3 in the morning, came back, and talked to him for a second. He said they won't accept her. And it wasn't because they were trying to be stubborn or difficult or anything. They simply said, we've got so many things backed up, other patients like her, we don't have room for her for 3 weeks. Basically, make an appointment, come back in 3 weeks, they'll have to do surgery, but that's the situation. Is it always that backed up? Not always, but often it is. Okay, so we got option C, ambulance transport to a private hospital. This is a reality. This one can work. You get somebody that comes in and they have some sort of an insurance, which I'm going to go over on the other piece of paper here that you got. But insurance, they've got money, they've got, whatever. And so they basically say, I want to go to San Javier. Okay, can you, make the deposit to get into San Javier? Oh yeah, I've got, $10,000 on my credit card, sure. And they go in, yes, that can be done quickly. And that case, the only purpose of for example, the Red Cross or some of the other ones, would be transport and or stabilization if necessary. Okay, and then I've got A and B. A and B are basically the same thing. B is where you would walk into the Red Cross, the municipal clinic, or wherever. It could be a private one too, it could be Moscata's. A is basically where the ambulance comes out, and it's just showing the flow chart where basically they decide whether or not the paramedics resolve the problem or not. A lot of times it's a fall. They'll just call and, so-and-so fell out of the bed, you put her in the bed, whatever. And we do have that. And, oh yeah. Yeah, you get, sometimes you get a diabetic patient that's hypoglycemic, just lightly, doesn't respond. They go out there, prick their finger. A lot of times the families, especially the poorer families, they don't have the money for the reactive strips. They're expensive. And it's, if you figure some of these people, they make, the equivalent to $5, $6 a day, which is not the norm. Most of them make a little bit more than that. But you're looking at reactive strips that are about $1 a piece. Between buying food or buying a reactive strip, a lot of people don't know what their numbers are. They're unconscious. It's like 45. So they basically give the patients glucose. They're good. They don't necessarily have to bring them back. Obviously, this patient should see a private doctor or whatever they need to do. But a lot of times they won't. They're like, oh, I feel fine now. And then they'll call them back out in another week. But a lot of times, whatever emergency presents can be resolved at the home, and that's the end of it. Otherwise, they bring them into whatever clinic, the Cruz Roja Municipal Clinic or private one, and they treat whatever it is. Maybe it's a, example, one person, poor guy, was just walking across his kitchen with a glass of water, and he fell, got his hand open, actually his wrist, bleed, actually shooting blood. And we found the artery, suture back together, and he went home. No need to go to a hospital. However, a lot of times the major emergencies fall into the other category where the rectangular box is, and it basically falls into 3 different categories. Patient has private insurance or ability to pay. In that case, it's the same thing. We basically take them to his private hospital of choice. Everybody's happy. Patient has, on the far left, patient has government insurance, EAMS, E-States, Sedena, Paymex, SEMAR. The only people here are going to have the EAMS. The Mexicans say EAMS, the foreigners say IMSS. It's the same thing. It's a government hospital. E-State is for government employees, teachers and such. Paymex, a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of young women working at Paymex pumping gas. They have their own hospitals and insurance, and so their kids are covered. That's the main motive to work there. And then SEMAR, Sedena, those are the military, which nobody here is going to have Mexican military insurance that I know of. But the EAMS is an option. How many of you have the IMSS, the EAMS? Okay. It's bureaucratic, it's slow, it's annoying, it's inefficient, but it can save your life. Going back to calling SAMU, the triage for permission, Let's say I've got that same patient that got hit by the truck, okay? If I basically say, oh, he's got EAMS, that changes everything. Even if it would be like that 18-year-old girl with a broken femur, changes everything. They call me back in about 15 minutes. I get a permit number, and away we go. What's the difference? Hospital Seville, it's way over full. There's 2 hospitals. EAMS, they're full, but you're looking at about 7 hospitals. There's a lot more space, and there's more money to go around in EAMS. EAMS is partially sponsored by the government. It's also, to a large extent, sponsored by the employees and by the employers. Both of them pay into this system. So there's a lot more money to go around. I'm not going to say it's a lucrative hospital by any means, but there's a lot more resources there. Anybody that has EAMS, if you can't afford anything else, at least get the IMS if you can get it. Sometimes it can be a little difficult, the pre-existings and everything. There was a time, I guess about 2.5 years ago, there was a doctora that was working over here at the number 40 clinic that was not renewing some people. I went over there and actually talked to the medical director over there about a month or 2 ago for a totally unrelated reason. But I did bring that up. I said, well, what about all the people that can't get in? I mentioned one specific person. I said, they refuse to renew him. He wants to know what it would take to get in. But now he's over 70. He's actually 81 at this time. And I said, I think the cutoff is at 70, right? He goes, no. This is his words. He says there's no cutoff on the age. He says that there is a cutoff on the pre-existings. In other words, or exclusion period. I don't remember. I think it was a year, but I'm not sure. But basically, at this point, it would be worth looking into. If nobody has any insurance of any type, that's a good option. You're looking at about $350 a year, basically, is what it amounts to, which is a really nice safety net. You're still going to go into their triage when you get there, but it can save your life. All right. Then in the middle here, I've got a block that says patient has Seguro Popular or no insurance. What's the difference between Seguro Popular and no insurance? In an emergency, there's no difference. Seguro Popular is the insurance for people that don't have insurance. It was a political move, basically. Poor people vote. There's a lot of poor people in Mexico. It was political. Is it worthless? No. If you don't have an emergency, it covers a decent amount of stuff. Cataract surgery, it'll cover for putting in a pacemaker. For example, if you have AIDS, it'll cover the AIDS medications, which are super expensive. It's not a bad system. It's broke. They basically, depending on where, they're between a year and 2 years behind in paying the doctors and the hospitals and everything. So a lot of hospitals really don't, care to take it. But anyway, it can be better than nothing. But in an emergency, it's the same as having nothing. You would go to Hospital Seville. What would be the difference? Okay, Seguro Popular may pay for some of the the surgery aspects, some of the stuff that they do, but getting in, no difference. It's not going to help you. So basically, if that happens, we make a decision, the patient makes a decision. Do they want to go through the triage or do they want to go straight to Guadalajara? In the case of the woman with the femur, basically they went straight to Guadalajara. Otherwise, we go through the triage system. If it's not a life and death emergency, it's not going to happen. And the bad thing is, okay, they're stable right now. In 20 minutes when they're unstable, then I call, well, by that time, once they're unstable, they can die just in a transport going to Guadalajara. So anybody that uses Seguro Popular thinking that that's going to save your life, it's cruel, but plan to die. It's in an emergency, it's not going to help you. It's great for other things, but in an emergency, it's not the safety blanket that a lot of people think it is. Okay. Patient has entered some move, basically going on down here, and I put some arrows of different lengths. And basically, at the top, I put patient has EAMS or similar insurance or rapidly accepted. We went over that. Patient has no insurance for serious injury. That would be the patient that has all the broken ribs. He's, the punctured lung and everything, because he's unstable. Then I go down in the middle, which is kind of a gray area, so to speak. It says no insurance, serious injury or death, but not usually life-threatening. This would be somebody, we had a case, actually we had a case yesterday, they called me about it. Patient was shot. I think he was shot in the arm, fractured. I mean, bone was just, shattered to pieces. But he's not going to die. So move, they wouldn't accept him. He's not gonna get any better sitting at the Red Cross for another, 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks. So basically, the best we can do is tell him to go to, Guadalajara, by himself. And I think that's what he finally ended up doing. But that would be it's a serious injury, but it's not considered life-threatening at this moment. Now, could it be? Yes. There's fat inside the marrow of the bones. It can go to the lungs. It can go, wherever. Yes, they can die. But it's not a matter of can versus will. So just because it could be life-threatening doesn't mean it is in this moment. And then going down, basically no insurance, chronic illness with low survival rate, even if treated. These are the patients that need intensive care. They're not necessarily emergency patients, they need intensive care. There's a lot of money that's spent on intensive care. You're not going to get into a free hospital and go into intensive care, not unless you've got the IMSS insurance. Going to Hospital Seville and getting in intensive care in a terminal condition, it's not going to happen. They will not accept the case, period. And then going down to the bottom, non-emergencies. An emergency is very relative. Obviously, the government has decided to, make it clear as to what's an emergency and what's not. But these are the people that they've got a sore throat. Their little baby has a temperature. Things that, just peddly little stuff that they should have seen a doctor about yesterday, but it's hurting now, so they can't sleep, so they come in. Those patients, they're not even gonna, if we call the regulation and or SAMU, and we sit there and say, I've got a patient, he's got a really bad toothache, can I get him into emergency in Guadalajara? They're just gonna roll their eyes, you can actually see through the telephone. Just don't do it. So, all right, let's take the other piece of paper here that we've got. It basically, at the top, it says emergency event, emergency medical plan flow chart. A little bit like the other one. First step is what type of emergency. Is it a critical emergency? Is it not? Going into, is it life-threatening? Is it not? Okay, simple, non-critical. Those are things that are handed basically at the local level. Whether you want to go to the municipal clinic, the Red Cross, Moscadas, wherever, clinic Ajijic, that can be handled. You basically pay, you get it resolved, everybody's happy. Critical, what would make a patient critical to where they would need an ambulance to go to Guadalajara versus going in a taxi? I've had a few people, actually, there was a case about a year ago that somebody was complaining about the price of the ambulance cost going to Guadalajara, and they were basically saying that they didn't want to pay over 500 pesos to go to Guadalajara. And, well, yeah, I said, well, how much would a taxi cost? Well, about 500 pesos. And I go, okay. And so you got one driver, not, if anything happens, he's not going to do CPR on you at the same time he's driving. You can't lay down in the taxi, you don't have the oxygen, you don't have the medication. Anyway, critical. Is there a need for oxygen? Is there a need for solutions, IV solutions? Is there a need for medication? Is there a need to be monitored? For a defibrillator, immobilized, intubated, which is basically where you got a tube, a breathing tube. If it's no, nosebleed, dog bite, headache, toothache, that just go however you want to go. That doesn't need an ambulance. If you do, then you would go by an ambulance that actually is well equipped. There's a lot of ambulances around here. There's regulations as to what you're supposed to have in them. It's a good idea to check and see what it has in it. For example, I know that some people go to Guadalajara, they pay the municipal clinic. It's cheaper than paying the Red Cross. Is it as well equipped? No. However, if it's not a life and death emergency, you just need horizontal transport. Let's just say a broken bone. You don't need to be monitored. You don't need IVs and everything for that. You simply need to be laying down. It can be whatever ambulance. However, if it's an emergency, then you want something that's a little bit better equipped. Okay, so let's say that you need to go by ambulance. You need to go to a hospital. how do you pay for it? That's what the whole thing comes down to. The government is not going to pick up the tab and wait to see if you have money to pay it back. It's not like a county hospital or anything that you would see north of the border here. Basically, if you don't have means to pay for it, or you don't have somebody else or some other system or company that will pay for it, it's not going to happen. Going down here to insurance. Basically, I put EAMS over here to the right. Low cost, but not all people welcome. Supposedly, yes, I guess it depends on where you go and who you ask. Hospitals, not always, they're not always equipped with the best stuff. However, I've actually got in one of my papers here, I think she's got it because I didn't want to hand it out. I've got an invoice from EAMS where they were buying Tenacta paste. Anybody know what Tenacta paste is? You've heard of the clot busters? No? Basically, if you're having a heart attack, it's a medication that dissolves the blood clot. There's also Tenacta paste. You can use it in a stroke, in some strokes. We'll go into that in a second. The difference, the first one was streptokinase. It's also recognized in the U.S. as cheapokinase. Why do they call it that? Because it's cheap. The actual cost of a vial of streptokinase is just over $100. And it does work. In a heart attack, it works quite well. It also causes an anaphylactic shock reaction, so you have to give the patient basically a corticosteroid beforehand, and then you can give it to them, and then they're safe. You don't give it to them directly, otherwise you'll cause more problems. But it does work. You just have to know how to handle it. It's cheap. Tenacta paste is probably, it depends on who you ask. You can ask 20 doctors, get 20 different opinions, but it's basically the best one, supposedly. The price of a vial is around $700 per dose. EAMS has it. They bought 6,000 vials of it last year. So it's not a bad system, but don't expect it to be what you're used to. Beggars cannot be choosers. Yeah, it's that system. Going into individual plans, some people have individual medical plans. The problem with the individual medical plans is when you're 30, 40, you're kind of, when you don't really need it usually, they're somewhat affordable. As soon as you hit 70, they start going up, and they're going up drastically. By the time you hit 75, 80, you're paying a pretty high premium. And then there's also a cutoff point as to when you can get in. Different insurances have different cutoffs into the 60s. There's a couple of them that even into the 70s. If you've got them, they're nice. They cover everything, usually. Let's go on down. Group rate. Major medical insurance. I think there's two different ones right now. I think Best Doctors and I think WIA. I think both of those exist right now through, I think it's Boomers in Paradise and Focus on Mexico. I think they offer them. And it's a group plan. The price is somewhere around $2,000, $2,500 if I recall correctly per year. And it's catastrophe insurance. It's not going to cover your petty little stuff. It's not going to cover several things, gallbladder, stuff like that. It's not going to cover. What it's going to cover are your big life and death stuff, major trauma, heart attack, stroke, and in the hospitals which they use are actually pretty good hospitals. If money is an issue, probably go between the catastrophe insurance or the IMSS. Both of those are somewhat feasible if you're wanting something that'll save your life in a major catastrophe. And then I go down there, and that's the Boomers in Paradise Focus in Mexico. Over on the right, Seguro Popular. Basically, like I said before, Seguro Popular in an emergency. Yeah. But you notice, if you can read the fine print there, I also put Article 158 and Article 161. Does anybody know what Article 161 and Article 158 pertain to? There's, the government laws. You've got basically, like I said before, about the hierarchy. You've got the Constitution, and then when you're talking medicine, there's the general medical law, which is the highest, and then there's other laws down below it. And it basically guarantees certain things, or it tells what you should have anyway, or you should be entitled to, such as second opinion. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a Bill of Rights which is based off of that, Patient Bill of Rights. If you go on down, there's a part in there that basically says you can't refuse an unstable patient. That's also repeated in the state law. the state penal code has all these different crimes, and basically, if you look at Article 158, 161, it is a crime for an emergency service to reject a patient without just cause. Now, what would be just cause? You're too full, you don't have an adequate doctor, you don't have adequate facilities. Somebody comes into, let's just say the Red Cross again. They come in and they're having a stroke, and they're demanding that we treat that stroke. We can say no. Now, we can stabilize that patient. We can give them oxygen, we can give them solutions, we can get them all ready to transport them to a hospital. But why would we not want to treat a stroke? Remember we're talking about the tenactipase that you can use in a stroke? There's two kinds of strokes. Usually 11%, well, let me go back. 89% of the strokes are blockage, just like a heart attack. And tenactipase could save their life, reverse the whole thing really, really well. However, let's say that we use tenactipase in, let's say we have 100 stroke patients here, all at once. We're going to treat them all with tenactipase. 11 will die if we do that. Why? Because 11% of the strokes are hemorrhagic bleed. We have to know which one it is first. Now, can I guess and say, yeah, it's probably not. It's probably this. Yeah, I can guess pretty well within about 95% certainty, but are you willing to risk your life on that? What it requires is either a CAT scan or an MRI. It used to be that the CAT scan was the gold standard to see if you were bleeding or not. However, the problem is a lot of times you'll have a patient that's bleeding and you won't actually see it right away. It won't show up. So basically, the new gold standard is what they call a diffusion-weighted MRI. It's more expensive. It takes a little more time to do, but you'll actually be able to see what's going on hours before you would see it in a regular CAT scan. These all require money. They all require that you be in Guadalajara. We could not treat a patient for a stroke without knowing what kind of stroke it is. So on that grounds, we can legally say, okay, we're not going to treat you because if we do, we can kill you. Patient needs a bullet taken out of their abdomen. We don't have an operating room. That would be a situation where we would tell a patient no. Anything where we're not handled or equipped, or if we simply have too many patients. We had a bus rollover the other day, and there were some emergency patients. Most of them were pretty stable. It's actually a couple months ago, I guess now. And so basically, we attend the most stable patients, and we get somebody that came in and got a scorpion sting. And they're like, you need to attend to this right now. No, we don't. We got other patients we got to attend to. The patient was stable, they're not going to die from the scorpion sting, and at least not that moment. And there's other places they can inject the antivenom. So that would be a case where we would not treat it. Give you a couple scenarios as far as the Article 158, 161. Let's say that you have a heart attack, and you're taken to the front door of San Javier, and you walk in, and you say, you got to treat me for free. Not going to happen. You basically went out of your way, which is you requesting services from that hospital. If you don't pay for the services, that's fraud, and they can basically take legal action, confiscate everything you've got. However, if you're walking down the street and it just happens to be in front of San Javier, yes, they have the obligation to stabilize you. That does not include putting in stents, anything major. That basically is stabilizing you so that you can go to someplace else and be treated. Let's give you another scenario. Let's say we got a patient that has money, has insurance, has something, and their goal is to go to San Javier to be treated. The patient becomes very unstable in Tlatelolco, and it's a matter of do they go the distance to San Javier or do they go to EAMS? Patient doesn't have EAMS. We don't have permission to go to EAMS. Can we go to EAMS and have that patient treated? Yes, because they became unstable, and that's the closest hospital. Okay? I had another question here. Somebody asked me about labs. Huh? Okay. All right. Let me go. Actually, I've got a question, some scenarios. We go into that probably into 5 minutes, and we can go a little over. That be all right? Okay. All right. Somebody asked about laboratories, which ones to use, which ones not to use, and everything. Just really, really quickly, the ones that I use just in general would be the Labo, simply because they do good quality work and it's pretty much the cheapest one.
What is it?
The Labo. It's over there in Interlago by Lake Taco. The other one that some people use is Easy Labs. It's Chapo. It's probably going to be the second. It's just a tiny bit more expensive, but it's a very good rate. However, they're over there by Dermica, over there by Pharmacy Christina. Good. The only thing is they're a cholesterol. They don't actually have the equipment there. They send it all to Guadalajara, although the other one sends most of theirs to Guadalajara as well. Go Labs is good. Had good results with all of them. However, at night, there's no laboratory in Guadalajara, or in Chapala. You would have to go to Guadalajara for that. But I've tried to get one of those little portable apparatuses. What's that?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do have something. I can speak up. Last week I thought I was having a heart attack.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have this paper and know I was supposed to die. So I called Seguro Popular, which dispatched an ambulance, took me to State of the Heart Hospital in Hoco. I was admitted immediately, had an EKG, saw a doctor, was rehydrated, and said, your heart is fine, you may go home. So I'm surprised that when you're talking about emergency medical treatment, which they are now set up to do there, and I wanted to go there because if they did have a heart attack, they have helicopter service to the hospitals in Guam. So I would like to see that included in your presentation.
Amen. Yeah.
It's hit and miss. It's hit and miss. Now, it's a new thing with that hospital, and they are still setting up and getting some stuff in there. It's a hospital that is actually, it's basically the Secretary of Salud. It's their hospital. It's not for other services. It's for the Secretary of Salud, which includes the Seguro Popular. It is coming along. At this point, they don't have all those services in place, but it's okay. Yeah, they're coming along. They're coming along. It's I wouldn't say that it's a viable option for everybody that has it yet. And once it does start to, it's probably going to get full, kind of like the one in Guadalajara. But it is something to consider for the future. But here, really quickly, I want to go over, I've got 22 different scenarios, and we're going to go over them really quickly, and then we're going into the questions and answers. Okay? Yeah, go ahead and give each one that.
If we're going to let the program go over a little bit longer, if you feel like you need to leave, then this would be an excellent time to do that. Otherwise, we've given Sam the permission to talk a little bit longer, so feel free to leave if you want.
Quiet.
It's a case. We're going to go over it. You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Sam?
Yes.
Why don't you let someone else distribute those?
Okay.
I think we have enough distributed now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
All right. You want to pass that? Okay. Let's start up here. This shouldn't take too long. We're just going over some case scenarios. All right. The first one over here.
There's nothing down here. I'm a diabetic. Stand, please. A pharmacy doctor changed my medication yesterday. I did not feel like eating today. I took on a week, and I'm kind of going for the consciousness.
Okay. And?
That's Seguro Popular.
Your Seguro Popular. All right. Depend. I mean, you might have the luck she had, but in general, it's usually by appointment. And you would go basically to the Central Salud. Exactly. So, what are you going to do? Very good chance of it. Can you die from hypoglycemia? Yeah. Basically, if you go down below around 24, 25, you can actually have some mild brain damage, alterations. A lot of people think of basically lack of oxygen being a big problem. Well, the oxygen basically is for the glucose to use to create energy. So if you go below a certain point with the glucose, you will die also. If you go below 11, it's over. So.
This is appropriate for my wife and I. Case number 7. This morning you noticed that you cannot see well to your side. You're losing your peripheral vision. Sometimes when you close your eyes, you see what looks like sparks. And we have catastrophic insurance for this one.
Okay. All right. Catastrophic insurance would be great for a lot of things. To my knowledge, I don't think either one would cover detached retina. Anybody that has cataract surgery is at risk for having a detached retina. Also, taking excessive fluoroquinolones, which are your Cipro-type drugs, would give you a little bit higher risk factor for it. In that case, you're basically looking at trying to call your, whether it be Dr. Pinto or whoever you use, and trying to get that repaired as soon as possible. The big thing is recognizing what it is. A lot of people don't recognize what it is. They think, okay, it'll be better in the morning. By morning, they're blind.
Detached retina.
Yeah?
That's what it is?
Yes. Yeah, that's the first stage of a detached retina. Yeah, now if it's both eyes, that's something else. That could be low blood pressure or low oxygen. But no, in this case, if it's just one eye, it's that. Okay.
This is case number 5. You're presented with symptoms of confusion and weakness on your left side this morning. When brushing your teeth, you notice that the left side of your face is numb. And it has ease.
Okay.
Ease is the...
Okay. All right. You're having a stroke, more than likely. And yeah, exactly. But we don't know which type. With the EAMS, you're lucky. Basically, within a couple of minutes, we'd be able to get permission, get you down there. They would do a CAT scan. They would know whether it needs to be treated, how it needs to be treated. Pretty good. You're good to
So
go.
you call the Cruz Roja
You're-
ambulance? Is that what you do?
Yeah, if you could, whichever one you wanted to, but yeah, that would be probably the best equipped.
This is case 11. You are walking across the kitchen with a glass of water. You trip on the tile and fall. You notice you are shooting blood out of an artery at your waist.
At your wrist.
It could be either one. I've seen blood shoot out of different places. But the bottom line, and what kind of, and she's a government employee. So we would take her to Guadalajara. No. In this case, it wouldn't matter whether she had insurance, the best hospital insurance or whatever. This is something we would treat right now, and we would treat it in one of the local clinics, and you'd be okay.
Okay, this is case number 15. You're walking in your house and you fall for no reason. Your left hip hurts so much to stand up. You're on the floor and there is no comfortable position.
Okay. The classic, everybody says you basically fall and break a hip. That doesn't usually happen. I mean, it can. If the hip is weak, that could be the last straw. But usually what happens is it gets weaker and weaker until you're just walking and it collapses. You didn't trip over anything. Nobody pushed you. You simply went down. That's a broken hip. And he's got 500 pesos in his pocket. Okay? Is it an emergency? It's not a life or death emergency. However, if it's not treated, he's going to be immobile and his risk of dying is going to go up. Blood clot, so on and so forth. Needs to have more than 500 pesos in his pocket. Actually, the majority of the patients that we get into Cruz Roja don't even have 500 pesos in their pocket.
This is case 13. You go to bed after arguing with your husband. You feel a sharp pain in your back. You look in the bed and you see a scorpion. You notice a lump in your throat. And we have Seguro Popular.
Okay. All right. Actually, in that case, you would go to either the municipal clinic or Cruz Roja. The advantage of having the Seguro Popular is it helps reimburse the Secretary of Salud for the antivenom. What you do not want to do is do not take an antihistamine. A long time ago, well, before the 90s, it was serum. And serum had other proteins in it other than just the antibodies. It would cause a reaction. 40% had an allergic reaction. So they automatically gave you an antihistamine. Antihistamines basically slow down the neurotransmission. And then you've got a neurotoxin on top of that. There's no reason to take it. What you feel in your throat is not an allergy. Very few people have an allergy to a scorpion. What you feel is basically the nerves not functioning right and the muscles kind of hanging down. So basically, don't take anything. If you want to put ice on it, that's fine. But basically, you need the regular antidote. And take your Seguro Popular card with you.
This is case 12. You are working on the roof and fall off the ladder. Your whole body hurts and your left leg looks like a pretzel. And you have 2,000 pesos.
Okay. This patient's going to need surgery. 2,000 pesos will not cover surgery. However, it'll help you a little bit. We had an exact case like that. A police officer from Hoco fell out of a tree while he was trimming it. Long story short, municipal clinic of Hoco, they basically don't give insurance to their employees other than their own municipal clinic. He was kind of SOL. He basically ended up finally getting down to the hospital Seville. It was by his own means. It was his brother that brought a van and transported him down there. We did not get permission to take him by ambulance.
Case 2. You present with symptoms that include chest pain when walking. It lasts more than 15 minutes. You feel a dull ache in the left side of your neck. And luckily, I have 300,000 pesos in the bank.
All right. You're good. You're good. First of all, you're having a heart attack. It's more than 15 minutes and it continues, and then you get the pain radiation. Very high probability it's a heart attack. With that kind of money, you can go down and have the best doctor in Guadalajara take care of you. You're good.
This happens to me all the time when I'm trying to speak English. Okay, this is case number 4. You feel a sudden sharp headache. You notice that no one understands you when you try to talk. That's what I said before. You are now unconscious.
Okay.
Insure or no?
Okay. All right. If this happened in the house, now a lot of people overlook the fact that when they have an accident, that a lot of times the car insurance will cover them. A lot of trauma cases that just go untreated because nobody thinks to check that they actually have insurance that'll cover it. In this case, it was in the house, probably a hemorrhagic stroke from the symptoms. This thing needs to be treated in Guadalajara as soon as possible. If you don't have any money, you don't have any insurance, not a good prognosis.
Case 3, you presented with a slight headache this morning that has gotten worse during the day. It is now that worst headache that you have ever had in your life. And I have nada.
Okay. Anybody remember Laura Branigan? She was a singer from the 80s. Yeah? Basically, she had the same thing. The day before she died, real bad headache, got worse and worse. Thought it would go away. It's a very aneurysm. But basically, in this case, he would need studies to confirm that. He doesn't have any money. Not a good prognosis.
Let's do one more.
Okay.
This is, hello?
No.
This is case 22. You have fainted 3 times in the last 4 months.
You never fainted before. You just fainted again right now. Solution, call your doctor.
All right.
Call a nurse.
Fainting can be a very important thing. If you faint, you've never fainted before, you've got to find the reason. If it's recent fainting and it's untreated, within the next 5 years, I think it's a 20% increase of dying. It could be from the heart, it could be from several things. Maybe you need a pacemaker, maybe you need some other treatment. But in this case, I think what she had was her doctor's phone number. And yes, call them, find out what you've got, let's get it treated, and let's work on that. Really, really quickly, the one before, the berry aneurysm, they were talking about whether or not it could be really treated. Obviously, after it ruptures, not a very good prognosis, but it's around $20,000 is the actual rough cost of basically having a stroke or an aneurysm treated in the brain. It can be done. The best hospital, the best equipped one, to my knowledge, would be Terra Nova in Guadalajara, but it can be done. They basically go in, just like they would go into the heart, they go up to the brain, and they can basically do what they need to do in there. It is an option. The big thing is identifying. That's why instead of putting, you have a heart attack, you have a stroke, I put the signs and symptoms, simply because identifying the problem is part of the battle. So, we're going to do one more, or that's it?
I think that should be enough. Well, there's a lot of questions out here, so.
Okay, let's go into the questions.
Okay. Okay, back here.
Here, I have it now. Dr. Thelin, you're a very elegant man because you have not spoken about a key issue, which is money. Money for the Red Cross. I was there with Pia. I had the honor of taking her. She was there 4 hours. She paid 400 pesos. And Dr. Thelin, with his compassionate heart, was next to her all the time. The Red Cross is ours. We have to be generous with the Red Cross. You can make a monthly donation. When you go there and they present you with a ridiculous bill, you have to pay 10 times more because that's what it would cost you at any hospital. But if you're a professional freeloader, this is not the moment. This is not the moment. Please tell them briefly how you operate with no funding, basically.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. We do what we do at the Red Cross with the minimum amount of funding. Obviously, there's a lot of fundraising. There is some recuperation when people, go in and receive a service. Let's just really, really quickly, suturing. Somebody has, needs sutures. I think it's 250 pesos is what they charge. Seguro Popular actually would pay around 500 pesos for each 5 sutures, each of the 5 stitches. We basically take in about 40% of what it costs to actually give that service, and then you add on top of that, the services of the ambulance, which we lose a lot of money there. Even right now, I'm kind of somewhere between annoyed and agitated with them. We don't have the money to do what we need to do, and basically they're juggling, and right now they're deciding, okay, well, we need, diesel fuel for the ambulances. Let's not pay the suppliers because they can wait another 30 days. Well, that was 30 days ago. And so even right now, I actually had to buy, their sutures that somebody came yesterday to my consultorio, and I had to give them a pack, like 20 sutures, because there's no sutures in the Red Cross, because we don't have the money to buy the sutures because they used the money for something else. So it's running on a shoestring. Any donation would be good. Just get it to the right source. Get it to, Charlie or one of the members of Consejo, myself, because unfortunately, if it's given right there at where they do the recuperation, where they charge, it may or may not get to us. It may just buy somebody a nice lunch.
Okay. Is it true that when the ambulance comes, they won't take you anywhere without being paid first? And what do you do if you don't have enough money in the house?
Okay, that's another issue. If it's life and death, they should not ask for the money. That should not be a determining factor. We did have it does happen.